that was a very quick overview of D2I2N. I'll give a quick kind of code example after the break. But for now, does anyone have any questions about anything that was just covered, from data store to our libraries for data store and D2I2N to internationalization to how to make apps generic? Any questions just right now off the bat before we go to a quick break?
Sorry, Austin.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit the difference between settings and objects when you are using the data store?
Sure. Yeah. So they're basically the same thing. The difference is that an object has a generated unique ID, whereas a setting has an ID that you know from the beginning. So a setting might be if you could like customize the title of your application, for instance, you would have one setting called title, and you would be able to edit that, but it would always be called setting or called title. With the concept of objects, you have basically just a list of objects with random IDs. You start with none, and when you add a new one, it generates a new setting with a random ID, and that becomes something that you can then reference later, and you can list all of them and that sort of thing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. Thank you.
Yeah. And we will be kind of fleshing out that concept. So that's a concept that it's not native to the data store, for instance. It's just a concept that we've implemented in the data store library that we shared. So it's just JSON in the data store. It looks just the same as settings, but it's a concept that is helpful when you're trying to save and load and create and delete objects, arbitrary numbers of objects from the permanent data store, if that's helpful. Any other questions?
Yes, Austin.
Yes.
So my question is that I just want to understand the process of translation. So when we use a function like i18.t, it means that it's going to pick the system setting in DHIS2 core when we configure the language, or we have to specify a local or something, because I don't see anywhere where we can pick the target language.
That's a good question. So it uses the language of whatever user is logged into DHIS2. So, and if you're using the platform, it will do that automatically. If not, then you have to do it manually. But I'm going to I'll give, just while we're here, I'll give a very quick example of how this might work. Actually, I'm going to do this after the break. So I'm going to prepare something really quickly and show an example of how you would translate and see that translation when you change the locale of your user after the break. But basically, it uses the locale of whatever user is logged into DHIS2. So in DHIS2, a DHIS2 instance, we have our user here, and we have the settings of that user. So for instance, my interface language is set to English, but if I change it to French, and that's updated, and now I go back to my application, you can see that nothing's changed because this application doesn't have translations set up. And actually, maybe I messed up this user. But you can see, for instance, in this dashboard, that we have tableau de bord instead of dashboard here. We have everything is written in French, or should be written in French. Oh, this is an older version of the instance. But you can see that you have a lot of the strings translated to French for this application. Data visualizer. And actually that should be translated as well. This is an older version of must be a very old version of 234. This has all been fixed, so I'll show that as well. But I'll demonstrate this after the fact. But the idea is that in your settings, you can set the interface language. You can set the interface language, and that is what it should be used for your application. Yeah, this has a lot of issues that have now been fixed. I think this is an older version of 2.33, 2.34. Apologies for that. Yeah, we'll take a quick 10-minute break. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to post them on Slack, and we will discuss them shortly. Thanks, everyone. See you back here in 10 minutes. As well as some, yeah, you can continue to work on the exercises from yesterday since there were more of those, and ask any questions about those as well. And there will be a short quiz to work on as a group during the breakout session. So we'll do that in just a minute, but for the moment, I'm going to share my screen and show you translations in an application. So this is, again, the same application that we were working on before. So this is, in this case, let's go to, here we go. So you can see that this is actually working correctly. So we have toutes les visualisations instead of all visualizations. This is in French now. You can see that in these buttons down here at the bottom, I haven't actually added translations to, or I haven't added the i18n.t calls for that text. So this is not working yet. It's still in English, but everything else here is in French. And this one also I have not updated to be in French. So I'm going to update this one to be in French here. The visualization name and edit visualization, I would need to add it as well. But you can see that here I have edit, new, and delete are all written in French at this point. And that's because my user here is set to French. If I now switch back to English and go back to my application and refresh, I get all visualizations, new, edit, delete. So I'll show you very quickly how I've done that, and then we can go break out into the breakout sessions. So let's go back to the code. So the main point, I'm just going to look at the app.js to do this. So previously, this just had all visualizations. So this is what it looked like before. So we have an H1 tag with the word all visualizations here, but this is just pure text. It doesn't have a function call, so there's no way for React to know that this needs to change to, or the app platform to know that this needs to change to something else if we're not in an English language. So I'm going to put this back in. First, I import. If you remember, one of the gotchas was that you always need to import the locales/index file, which is generated in this by the app platform. So you can look at that. You can see it. You can see index.js. It's auto-generated by the generation function of our platform. You can also see the individual translations for each of your locales or languages. This whole locales directory is generated, so it's not actually committed to Git. You can see it in the git ignore. It's automatically added to git ignore also by the platform, so that this is not committed to Git, and it's generated every time you run yarn start. So if we go back to this app.js file, first I import i18n from that. You can also import i18n from @dhis2/d2 i18n. However, as I mentioned, you need to import the locales/index at least one time in your application. So it's a little bit cleaner or safer to always import from there. So you can go /locales/index, or /locales works as well. This also exports exactly the same thing as @dhis2/d2 i18n. So you can see that it has this same import i18n from dhis2/d2 i18n, and then it re-exports it. So it's very safe to import this file directly. So now we have this i18n object. We're going to change this all visualizations text to be a function. We're going to call i18n.t, and then we're going to pass it a string which is that all visualizations string. That's all we got to do. So we change that. And then in order to get this picked up by the system, we would need to restart the development server. So it won't get picked up automatically yet. Maybe in the future it will, but it does not get picked up automatically today. To show that, I'm going to show this, this edit dialog. So you'll see that I have already done i18n.t for save, but I have not done it for cancel. And you can see that in this, actually, I'm going to switch back to my French user. So let's switch to French. You can see that this is translated, but this one is not. And you can see that in the code as well, because we have i18n.t for save, but not for cancel. So let's add this to the cancel, i18n.t cancel. And that's basically all we have to do. So we're going to restart our server. It takes a minute to reload, but now it should reload in just a moment. It's reloaded, modify. Why is that still cancel? So this is something that could be another gotcha, but you'll see that this, you can actually see it in the output here when I reran yarn start. We're writing 6 language strings to en.pot. So this is writing the language strings to the English version. So if we look at this generated file, which we do commit to Git, so you see that it's in green here on the left side, we have an i18n folder and an en.pot. So this has all of the strings in our whole application that are translated or translatable. They're using i18n.t. So it finds all of them and it puts them all into this file. But the platform and DHIS2 and React, they don't know how to translate those strings automatically. So we only have the English version, which means that we will always, if we haven't specified a translation for a particular string, like cancel in this case, it will always fall back to that English version. What I've added here, so if you see i18n and then we have en.pot, I've added fr.po next to that file. And you can see that this has the translations that I've manually added. It looks exactly the same as this file, except that the message string is in a different format. So, or sorry, message string has the French translation. But you'll see that in en.pot, I have this cancel. In the other file, fr.po, below delete, I have save, which is not correct. So we're missing that translation. So I'm going to manually add that here. You can use also a system, we use a system called TransFX, which is an online service to do this automatically for our core applications. But you can also do it manually. So I'm adding this cancel string. And I'm going to add the translation of cancel into French here, right? So I'm going to add that there. So if we now, again, if we just refresh this page, it's not going to pick it up because we need to restart the server. So we're going to restart the server here. This will reload. And now we have the French translation of that cancel string. So that was just a quick example of how DHIS2's i18n library works, how to use it in your application. You should ideally, right, to make this application truly generic, every single one of these English strings, so things like first, previous, page, next, last, edit visualization, visualization name, all of those should have translations into every language that you want to support. And it makes it easy to do that, but you still need to do the work of making sure that all of the strings are translated to all of those languages. Yeah, that was my quick kind of overview of translations in DHIS2 applications in the platform. I saw one question, support caching strings automatically. I'm not sure what you mean by caching strings, Mohammed. If you could, if you want to unmute yourself and ask that question, or if you want to specify in there, that would be great. how do you add new languages? Okay, so how do we add new languages? So in this case, we have en.pot and fr.po. If I copy this en.pot file, I'm gonna go ahead and paste it underneath here. I'm gonna rename that to, because, yeah, so I'm gonna rename that to es.po. So this is gonna be Spanish. So in Spanish, we're gonna have las or los, I don't remember. Sepa. Yo no sé. For instance, and then we could say, let's say, my Spanish translations are very bad right now. But yes, you could add a new translation in this way. We should then change to Spanish. Go back to our application. We have to restart our server. And we should see nuevo. Yeah. So I haven't translated any of the other strings, but we have the nuevo word here instead of new. Oh, and we also have todos las. I think it would be las visualizaciones. It's really hard to say. Another question we had here. The contents of the file, local FR translations, that's JSON. Yes, so you should not edit the translations, for instance, fr/translations.json. This is generated when you start your server. So do not edit these files directly. You edit them in the en.pot, es.po, and fr.po. And those are what's used to generate these other translation files. Good question as well. Looks like Mohammed maybe is asking about the caching, but we are running out of time, so I'm going to, I'll answer that tomorrow morning perhaps. But for now, we can break out into quickly and maybe for 10 minutes into breakout sessions to work on the quizzes. The quiz again is in the in our Academy page. So if you go to your Academy account, log in, see the course DHIS2 Application Development Part 2. On the left-hand side here, you will see day 2. We're on day 2 now. You have this quiz for making apps generic. So there are 5 questions, I believe. Should be a little bit more straightforward than the ones yesterday, but there are more questions. So work on these together with your team, ask each other, and you can call me as well, or ask the instructors as well on Slack, or we'll be going around to the different breakout sessions. And we will reconvene in 10 minutes to kind of wrap up for today and introduce the exercise. But we'll start by breaking out into breakout sessions and then working on these 5 quiz questions. Let me know if you have any questions. Alice or Mathieu, are you able to break us out into breakout sessions, or should I do that?
Yes. Can you make me host?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. It will take a few minutes.
Okay. That's probably a bad idea, and it will be bad. I had somebody just raise their hand in the with maybe a question. Chamika, do you want to go ahead and ask that? Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is regarding question number 1. Which of the following points makes DHIS2 a fully generic app? Does it mean, are you referring to the main 3 criteria, or anything which supports that also probably, I mean, it's one of the main points that makes DHIS2 fully generic?
Yeah, it's
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's referring to those 3 main points as mentioned in the application. I mean, the other points are some of the points that are also included in the list are good practices, but don't really have anything to do with what makes a DHIS2 app specifically generic. That's more apps in general that should comply to those type of things.
Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Okay.
Cool. We're about 10 minutes past the end time here, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce or Hendrik, let me know if you want to do this, but I'm going to introduce the exercise, I think, and then we'll wrap up for the day. Hendrik, do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
Sure. I'll introduce the exercise.
You want to share your screen, or I can? I have it up if you want me to share it.
I'll share it. Just
Okay.
going to the right spot. Okay. There we are. Yeah, so basically this is just a small exercise to see if the app is, if you can work on localizing the strings in this app. There's only a very small amount of text. And to make it a little bit more complicated, we've included a plain string, but also a string that will require you to use the interpolation functionality of I18 Next. In the README, there are also some instructions. Actually, I think after Austin did a small demo already, if you paid attention to that demo, these tips would have probably not been necessary. But yeah, you can, there are some tips on how you can create the necessary folders, and also on how you can maybe test out the different translations, see if they're working. So that's all in the README file. So yeah, I think it's a very short exercise. It shouldn't take you very long at all, I think.
Yeah, so this will be a shorter exercise. There still are the exercises from yesterday. For those that haven't completed all three portions of that, feel free to work on those if you have extra time.